off-road in Porsche's new 4x4. Richard drives the new McLaren Mercedes. And we find the best of British. Hello! Now, tonight's show has a bit of a German theme. So, settle back, slot a bit of Kraftwerk into your Grundig, crack open a bottle of Blue Nun, and let's have a light canter through some of the achievements of the fatherland. This is a tank, and its job is to go through buildings and trees and stuff. And this is a sports car, and its job is to kind of go round everything. Like that. Now, these are two completely separate entities, but the Germans have decided they can be combined, that you can have a tank GTI. This is the result, the Porsche Cayenne. The first car ever to be named after an ingredient. On the one hand, it's a huge 2.3-ton monster capable of dealing with the worst that the Somme has to throw at it. But when you take it on the road, it turns into an absolute screamer. It is hugely fast. This turbocharged 450 brake horsepower model is actually quicker than any Mercedes, Jaguar or BMW. It'll do 165 miles an hour. And then there's the acceleration. It just shrugs off its weight and flies. 0 to 60 takes 5 seconds and about 17 gallons of fuel. And it's not just fast in a straight line either. Whenever I drive one of these big off-road cars, I'm always terrified that I'm going to have to swerve for something and it'll just fall over. But in this, there is no fear. It feels like I'm in a big, well-sorted sports saloon. It actually feels very similar to the Audi RS6. So, it's big, fast, and stunning to drive. But none of this is important. To test its off-road abilities, we've come to the place where the army tests its tanks, Bovington, in Dorset. Now, most modern off-road cars, like for instance the BMW X5, would get stuck on a croquet lawn. This has lots of ground clearance, it's got locking diffs, it's got a low-range gearbox. As a result, I'm pointing straight at the sun. This is very impressive. I can't believe I'm doing this in a Porsche on high-speed road tyres. But I am and I have, and it's at the top. That's astonishing. This car is jam-packed with electronics that are not only very clever, but also very tough. That's a bit of a dust cloud. If anything, the Cayenne is even more impressive here than it is on the road. You know what? I don't care about that either. Inside you get lots of buttons to push, but not as much space as you might have been expecting. The rear will take 3 at a pinch, but the boot is tiny. It's not the most practical car in the world then. Not that this matters. It's not exactly cheap either. The base model is £45,000. This turbo is £70,000. That makes it about £20,000 more than a Range Rover. But I don't care about that either. Nothing matters less in my life. Nothing. As an engineering exercise, the Cayenne is astonishing. Only the Germans could have pulled it off. But all their efforts with the power and the speed and the toughness and the agility, they were all a complete and utter waste of time. Because look at it. I think what they tried to do is make the front look like a 911, which it doesn't. And then from here back, it looks like they haven't bothered. Honestly, I have seen more attractive gangrenous wounds than this. It is a monkfish among cars. It has the sex appeal of a camel with gingivitis. And frankly, I would rather walk back to the studio than drive another yard in it. So I shall. That way.
I have to say, I think I'd have walked back as well, you know. That is a truly horrible car.
It is absolutely foul. I actually think that if a child looked out of his bedroom window and saw it, Daddy! Daddy, there's a monster outside there! This is horrible! And he's, no, son, that's my new Porsche.
The thing is, they are absolutely everywhere. They're everywhere.
You say that, but actually, Altrincham, I've got a list here of where they're being sold, OK? And Altrincham, which is a sort of footballer's wives suburb in Cheshire, they've sold more there than they have in Loughborough, Luton, Manchester, Medway, Middlesbrough, Midlothian, Milton Keynes, Newcastle, Newport, Normanton, North Dorset and North East Bedfordshire put together. And then there's Guildford. If you take Surrey and Cheshire out of the equation, they won't have sold one. I mean, it really is a question of, you are now entering Onyx County, please drive your Cayenne carefully. And the reason why no one here is laughing is because we are in Guildford.
Onyx
This lot of exactly, they've all got Onyx coffee tables.
Right, the news, and sticking with the Cayenne because there is a new model out, they have made some changes. Here it is, specifically the changes are to the engine.
Oh,
it's
brilliant.
now a V6 with 250 brake horsepower. It will be cheaper and lower CO2 emissions.
Yes, and they've left the one bit that needed changing.
Yeah, the body.
It's still hideous.
So they threw away a good engine, kept the hideous looks.
It is from the depths, that
Yes,
thing,
it
isn't it?
is.
And you remember what you were saying about monkfish earlier on in your piece? And you know, sometimes those deep-sea fishermen, they dredge up one of those hideous anglerfish from 20,000 fathoms, and it's all distorted and bloated because of the change in pressure. I wondered, if you put that down to 20,000 fathoms, if it would turn back into a 911. Now, I've found the perfect insight to the German mind here. Audi has launched a new flagship A8. Here's a picture of it. It's the poshest car in the range, and it's being fitted with daylight running lights. These are the ones that are on all the time, like they are on a Volvo. Now, when Volvo does this, they just wire up the normal lights, so they're on all the time. But Audi have put low-voltage LED daylight running lights on this car, and they say this has virtually no effect on fuel consumption. Now, they do use power, so I rang up Volvo, and I said, what is this all about? How much do your daylight running lights, how much extra fuel does that mean you're using? And they went away and they did a calculation, and they came back and they said, to be honest, it's such a tiny amount that we can't measure it. So now Audi have said, yes, but we will half it. So now it's even smaller again. And that was the Swedes, who, let's face it, are a rational bunch. The Germans have made the Swedes look reckless. What sort of an achievement is that?
Sticking with our theme of the Germans, here's a worrying piece of news. You have to bear with me, it'll take a second to get there. Mercedes, next to their factory, they have a car park. Into that car park, they put all the new cars as they build them. So they line them all up, all shiny. Their problem is, every year there are massive hailstorms. Massive. Big hailstones come down, ruin the paint on all their brand new cars. Mercedes, being Mercedes, obvious solution, well, just control the weather. So they've learned a way of sending aeroplanes up, and they drop chemicals on the clouds, and that in turn breaks down and dissolves the hailstones. No hailstones, doesn't destroy
But this
the
is
cars.
a big problem.
Well, this is a big problem, because those hailstorms came for a good reason. God sent them, and God sent them with good reason, because just up the road from the Mercedes factory is the German wine-producing area. God doesn't like German wine, let's be honest.
So every
Neither do
year,
any of us.
God sends hailstorms to flatten the German vines, so we don't have to have any Blue Nun and Black Tower. And now Mercedes has gone along. We've got rid of the clouds. More German wine, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen.
It's terrifying. It's bad news.
No, but I just wondered, why don't they just, for example, build a shed?
Well, because they're German.
I was
They're
thinking if I go
Germans. This would
outside-
be simple.
If it's hailing, I don't think...
It is easier to send a Messerschmitt into the clouds and
Shoot the clouds out of the sky.
Calendars, okay? It's a fairly simple thing, you know, to get a good calendar. When you walk into one of these tyre repair places or, you know, a clutch fitting, they've got it on the wall. What do you need to get a good one? You need a girl.
Yes. Baby oil.
Baby oil.
Put on her.
To put on because she doesn't need clothes.
And that's it, really.
That's it, really. New Pirelli calendar's out. Would you like to see it? You'd like to see that? How could they have got it that wrong? Look!
That's just an office accident.
She's
come off a chair.
A woman wearing a jacket last worn by Carol Decker into POW has fallen off a chair.
She's probably spilled her coffee. Actually, it's quite a sad incident.
That's rubbish.
It's
There's no
a-
tyres on it, anyway.
No, exactly.
Okay, would you like to look at this one?
What?
Look at it. And do you know
I'm sorry,
something?
that is not going to...
Do you know something really bizarre? You can't even use it as a calendar because how do you read it going children's nativity play?
There aren't any dates on
No, but there are. They're here. Can you try and see this? Look. There you go. Look.
Oh, you can see it.
It does
That's
actually
just
have.
stupid.
I think, quite honestly, we should do a Top Gear calendar.
That
God,
would
not
a-
be on it.
No.
No.
But I mean, how hard can it be?
Make one, you mean?
January?
Sort it out.
February?
Where?
Not you, sir.
Look at
behind
people
you.
edging away.
Ooh!
March. March is sorted.
August?
Possibly April as well.
What are you doing in August? Anything? You busy? Are you with him?
Yeah.
Right. You can go and sort that one out.
Thank you.
Nodding furiously.
Oh,
wants
yes,
to be on
please.
the Top Gear
I was
calendar.
saving you for December, actually. Right, good. I think we've got enough there, then.
Can I spoil the festive season with some extremely sad news? The Vauxhall Omega is dead. I'm sorry, it is.
What are
It
we
is
gonna
dead.
do?
I don't know.
No, because honestly, whenever they say we'll send a car to pick you up, I always hope for an S-Class. But of course, the BBC are never actually going to send one of those. That is my favourite car to be in the back of.
I agree entirely.
There's a lot of lure.
There is a lot
There's
of
all that
allure.
really deep. I get lost in it, just like finding my way. A bit like
I love that. As the best minicab ever made.
Ever. Obviously, it's very sad that it's gone out of production, but I'm thinking Vauxhall, all they need to do to keep it in production forever, actually, is find some way of building it with 120,000 miles already on the clock and smelling of BO, and then they can log it straight away, and that's
that'd
that.
be brilliant. Right, if I can draw the news to a close and get back to our theme, the Germans. This is the new Mercedes CL65. It has a 6-litre twin-turbo V12 engine, 612 horsepower, and so many torques that Mercedes actually had to detune the engine to stop it blowing up the gearbox. Now, it does cost £120,000, but amazingly, it isn't the top banana Mercedes. No, rather annoyingly, I had to go to South Africa to drive that.
So why do we have to come all the way here to Cape Town? It's a puzzler. After all, South Africa has the highest rate of carjacking in the world, so it's hardly the perfect place to drive a 300 grand supercar.
No, it is a real struggle to see a single reason why senior Mercedes executives would want to spend a month here in November. Anyway, the car. It costs 3 times as much as the most expensive Mercedes, so it had better be at least 3 times as good.
Let's have a look. Well, it's certainly got the presence, the charisma, that long bonnet, those grills in the wings. Crikey, it does look good.
If there's one thing any supercar's got to do, it's make you feel like a 10-year-old as soon as you look at it. Mission accomplished, I think. And this shape, remind you of anything? Formula One car. And then there's this, the doors. How long until you tire of that? Well, you never will. But it's got one more trick. Starting it. Lift and press the button. Ooh. I've just come over all funny.
And on the move, it loses none of that charisma.
McLaren connection means that whereas the Ferrari, for instance, is made in exotic-sounding Modena, the SLR is made in Woking, in Surrey. But don't let that put you off, because the last car to be made in Woking was the McLaren F1.
That's a hard act to follow, so McLaren has used plenty of its F1 know-how in making the SLR. Like an F1 car, it's made almost entirely of carbon fibre. And again, like an F1 car, it has a flat underbody for high-speed stability.
There's even an electronic air brake that lifts up at the back. The thing is designed to stick to the ground and get its power down. So much grip! It will crease the road before it lets go, I'm sure.
But even more impressive is the engine.
They've used a 5.5-litre supercharged V8. It puts out 626 brake horsepower and more torque than in all the rest of the cars in the world added together. 0 to 60, 3.8 seconds. Better still, 0 to 120, just over 12 seconds. Top speed, well, limited by tyres and stuff, to 207 miles an hour. That's probably enough. And what an engine! The laws of physics no longer apply. That thing all the way over there is actually here. Watch. This is the sort of power that planets are built with! Awesome!
So, it's got more power than God, it's loaded with F1 technology, and it grips and handles like no other. And if you stop anywhere for more than 10 seconds, you'd better enjoy being mobbed.
Is it yours?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
All that begs the vital question. Have they done it? Is this the ultimate supercar?
No.
Let me explain.
If I spent £313,000 on a house, I want it to look pretty nice inside. On a car, I want it to blow my mind. This just doesn't. There's plastic in here. Come on. This is a car to be bought by people who don't have plastic stuff knocking about. Their lives are perfect, shining, without flaw.
And it has a very, very firm ride, unless you adjust it, in which case it gets even harder.
But there's one other reason why I'm sad to say it fails to be perfect. And it's these, the brakes. I mean, look. Whoa! It sure isn't that they don't stop. They do. But it's how they do it. The brakes are on or off, and that's your choices.
It's not like they're unsophisticated. They're ceramic and virtually fade-free, no matter how much punishment they get.
On wet surfaces, the discs are constantly massaged by the brake pads to keep them dry. I mean, short of deploying parachutes, you couldn't do any more to stop this car than it already does. But it has no feel. I feel remote and distant, and that comes close to ruining the whole experience.
It falls short, then, of perfect, and perfection is what we're after here. And I'm not sure the SLR really knows what it is. It wants to be a race car, like a Carrera GT, or an Enzo, but it also wants to be a comfy GT cruiser. So at times it feels not like a special hypercar, but just a big, fast Merc. And then they tell you, proudly, that there's enough room in the boot for 2 sets of golf clubs. And that worries me. That's just fat businessman stuff. It's a marriage between McLaren and Mercedes, the SLR. And it's brilliant. I just wish it was a bit more McLaren and a bit less Mercedes.
Big question is, okay, how does it compare to the Porsche Carrera GT?
Don't know, I haven't driven it.
That's the thing, you see.
Yes.
I have driven the Porsche Carrera GT. There's a photograph of me here in it. There I am, look, going through a wood.
Oh, yes.
And there's another one of me inside it
You
there.
look like you're having fun. This leaves us with this bit of a problem because you've driven one, I've driven the other. We need to kind of combine our experiences to really come up with a meaningful conclusion. We need a mind meld, really. No, that hurts.
It's not working, is it? I tell you what we'll do, because we're ingenious. Top gear, top trumps.
Here's
okay?
a decider.
This is the decider. OK, what sort of brake horsepower have you got in the SLR?
626 brake horsepower.
Well, you beat the Porsche.
Yeah,
That's a
straight
mere
away.
612. OK, what about your weight?
Well, this is where it goes wrong. 1,693 kilos.
Porsche's a lightweight, 1,380. Okay. So, I've got less power, I've got less weight.
0 to 60?
3.8.
3.8.
OK, price.
£313,465.
A bargain, frankly.
Obviously, yeah.
Compared to the Porsche's £322,899.
Ouch. That hurts.
There is just one thing, though, we really can split them. Things that are wrong with it, the flaws on this.
Well, there is that plasticky interior, it's a bit disappointing, and the brakes are desperately numb, and the ride is a bit hard, it must be said. What about flaws on the Carrera GT that you drove?
Aren't any.
Right.
Honestly, there was nothing wrong with it, apart from the people who make it. Nine, get out, go home!
You can look at it gently.
They've made a perfect car, and annoyingly, they have made a perfect car. It is absolutely brilliant. So we would have to say, well, I suppose actually, if you're going to the golf pitch.
Yeah, you can get your bats in the back.
Yeah, you get your bats in the back, so you need one of these. But if you're like a human, and you just want to drive on roads or on motorways or tracks, you're better off with the Porsche. Now, we need someone to put in our Suzuki Liana. And this week, we've got Nelson Mandela, Michael Parkinson, Julian Clary, me, and Roger Moore. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rory Bremner! Have a seat. Now, of course, I'm thrilled you're here because you meet the bare minimum requirement for a petrol head. You are an Alfa Romeo man.
Absolutely.
What have you got?
I drive a 166. I was going to come down here in a 166 this morning, except somebody threw a brick through the window this morning. It's probably one of this lot, was it? If there's anyone walking around with a half a brick.
The other half is in the back of
the other half
car.
in the back of the car. But no, it's a great car. I started with 156s. They're like wolves in sheep's clothing, Alfa, because they're kind of...
They're not.
They are.
They're not. You look at an Alfa Romeo, you know immediately. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It really is. It's a beautiful looking thing.
But they're understated. That's what's great about them.
Now, you're also a big fan of these classic rallies.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to...
Oh.
If I end up in hell, which is a possibility, I would say...
Here we go.
Eternal... The worst thing I can imagine is being put in a classic rally with a friendly man with a beard. Chatting to me.
Yeah, of course they've got beards. I mean, you're going to have a beard because you haven't got time to shave because you're busy mending the car.
I mean, there's just the notion they long for it to break down so they can get their fingernails dirty.
Well, yeah, sometimes it breaks down, OK, it's true. But if you're going through fantastic scenery, it's a bit of a waste if you just go through it. I mean, you like to stop and stand by the side of the car for a couple of hours, and you can listen to the cows, and you can listen to the bells, and you can listen to the churches, and then you're on your way again.
But you can do that in a modern car. In an old car, it stops where it wants to.
Yeah, but driving an old Italian sports car through the Alps into Italy, where's the fun in that? I mean, I know you...
But you're not. You're on the M25 thinking, all my friends are now driving through, and mine's broken down.
Don't drive them in this country, that's the thing, because the weather's not very good.
Well,
so
how do you get them
abroad.
to the port in order to get abroad?
Well, that's the story, because we did a rally in Spain once, and let's see, the first car broke down on the M25, the second one broke down on the A3, going back to fix the one on the M25. The third car mysteriously broke down on the boat.
This was an Alfa Romeo rally, obviously.
It was. No, the first car, to be fair, the first one was a Beetle. So the two had gone before we got to Portsmouth. The third one went on the boat because the steering jammed on the crossing from Portsmouth to Bilbao somehow.
They do that.
The fourth one, the electrics went before we'd actually got to Bilbao city centre. And the fifth one, I think, soon caught fire. So that's 5 on the second day.
Out of how many?
Out of 7.
That's...
It was like the dam
Alfa
busters.
Romeo, that's a high attrition rate.
It was like the dam busters. It was, we've lost Pinky. We think he's bought it on the ferry.
What about the people? Because this is what worries me. I once made the mistake of engaging an Aston Martin owner. They're the worst. Never engage an Aston Martin Owners Club person in conversation because they don't talk in models, they talk in chassis numbers.
Oh, dear.
Oh, I see he's got big... And they've all got an adenoid problem.
They all talk like John Major.
I've had a remarkable experience in that accident.
Isn't it great? Because before John Major turned up on the scene, everyone's Wally voice was John Major's. Oh, I've got horrendous trouble with my gearbox. And then this man arrived as Prime Minister. He said, hello, I'm going to run the country for the next 6 years. And it was the Wally voice from your childhood.
But the Wally voice still exists, I think, in any classic car environment.
Oh, I know you're on it, but because sometimes we actually choose the co-driver out of a hat, and I know that's your idea of hell. But it's quite nice because you get
You what? No, I didn't. What? You do what?
You choose the co-driver's name out of a hat.
So you could end up with friendly men with beard.
You could, absolutely. But more often than not, you end up with friendly man with beard's wife, which is actually quite fun.
Also with beard.
Yes.
I tell you what, we were thinking the other day about inappropriate people for reading out really heavy-duty car stuff. And since you're here, can you just read those out in the style, starting with that first bit, can you read it in the style of Julian Clary?
And this is kosher car review.
Yeah, that's all come off magazines, okay? But
and
Julian
this is the style
Clary.
of Julian Clary, right.
A muscle car needs a big unit. Which is why the Firebird runs a 400 cubic inch V8 hooked to a 4-on-the-floor transmission. And to show you're packing real power, 2 bonnet scoops literally ram air into the carburettor.
Now let's hit Prince Charles for the final bit.
This maxed out Civic runs seriously trick intake and hardcore nitrous kit.
I think we should switch to Nelson Mandela.
Whilst the slamming ICE is all about a pucker head and ear-splitting deep dish 12-inch subs.
Fantastic. Oh, God. I'll tell you who I think talks the funniest of the lot. The police.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? Where do they learn to talk that language that they do?
Traffic police, it's a strange thing. I was done once for speeding. It was in Barnes, and it was when Pride and Prejudice was on the telly. And I was trying to get home for 9 o'clock, and it was in, I think, sort of 35 and a 30-mile-an-hour limit.
Oh, no.
I know, terrible. So anyway, and you know, they stop, and you know how they take a very, very long time. And I said, look, I'm so sorry, it's just Pride and Prejudice starts at 9 o'clock, and I was just trying to get home. I know, it's really stupid, It's all in good time, sir, all in good time. And then, you know, it takes a lot, looks round the tyres, looks round the back of the car. And then, I don't know who writes these speeches, he then came back and he said, well, Mr. Bremner, I shall let you on your way, he said. Far be it from me to keep you from the classics. There is a training college in Oxfordshire where they are taught this new dictionary.
It's bizarre. Now, anyway, listen, you've been out on our track, obviously. Fun, was it?
The track was fun. The Liana was on the slow side.
Who'd like to see some of Rory's practices? Yes. Okay.
The practices?
Yes, that's...
You didn't tell me you were
we were filming the
them.
practices. Of course we were. Let's have a look. Here he comes, quite fast. Bit of a wobble. Oh, it's all...
Look, what am I doing with my hand?
That's exactly what happened to Sanjeev last week, and you've held it together, unlike him, who ended up going backwards. But as far as the lap itself is concerned, pleased?
Yeah, reasonably. It's one of the. It was sort of you're given a couple of laps, and it was.
You're not given
one.
a couple. How many laps were you allowed to do?
9.
9. You see. Would you like to see the result of this 9 laps? Yes. Okay, let's run the lap.
Go!
Well, that's quite tidy through there. It's a dangerous corner, that one. Rory, I'm impressed.
Hardly.
No, look at that. That's the tightest I've ever seen through...
That's better. Go!
That's less satisfactory, but...
It's on the inside.
You're right, instructor.
OK, this is the follow-through. Scary corner. You can do it flat out. Were you flat out through there?
Yeah.
Good man. What's this? Second to last? Yeah, that's like threading a needle at 100 miles an hour. You got that one without the tank slapper. Through Gamble.
I lost it here, but...
Very good. And across the line. How do you think you've done?
Somewhere in front of Richard Whiteley. What was it?
Somewhere... Oh, Whiteley? Somebody's stolen Whiteley from the board. Or maybe he's dropped off the floor. Enfield sitting at the bottom. No, Whiteley's 2 minutes 6 seconds.
Oh.
Unbelievable. Well, I'm going to have to spell your name wrong.
Why?
Well, because I did Sanjeev wrong last week.
Oh, right, okay.
So you can have the double E's that I should have put in his name.
Goody.
You could be Rory.
I've been
And you
called
did
worse.
it in 1 minute 40. So very fast. 7.9.
Oof.
You are the second fastest person ever to go round the track.
I thought it was way down.
No!
That was,
Well, and I'm going to say, I'm not just doing it, but actually joking around with the Murray Walker stuff in the process.
well, I had to do that, but I'm surprised.
Have you ever... Surprised? I love the
Yeah.
underplay. Oh, I'm
No,
surprised.
I was, because you've got no idea. And people say, how was that? How was that? They go,
No, that was you can just tell that was a tidy lap. The thing is, have you ever actually met Murray Walker?
Yes, I have. We did a conference together. We had to introduce him. And I said to him, 30 years of motor racing commentary, who's the one person that stands out as the most impressive person you've ever met in the whole years of motor racing? I thought he'd say, Fangio or Jackie Stewart or Ayrton Senna. And he said, Jim Rosenthal.
Bless him. Bless him, really. But anyway, thank you very much for coming, and that's an impressive time, Rory.
I'm
You can go and have a drink now.
Thank you
Ladies and
very
gentlemen,
much.
Rory
Thank
Bremner! Now, we spent the first half of the show looking at a couple of German cars, neither of which, frankly, pass muster. So we thought it'd be a good opportunity now to look at what the Britisher architect is up to.
MG Rover, of course, aren't exactly the largest or the richest car company in the world right now, which is why they've got together with some Indians to build this, the City Rover. Now, at 6,900 quid, it is too expensive, particularly as, well, it's rubbish. But fortunately, they have put together another car, and that one, well, put it this way, Jeremy was up at the crack of dawn to try it.
This fabulous-looking two-seater is the MG SV. Now, as Richard said, Rover's not exactly flush with cash at the moment, so this car was designed and engineered by just 6 guys, using whatever they could lay their hands on. The chassis is made in Italy. The all-carbon fibre body is shaped on the Isle of Wight. The 4.6-litre V8 engine comes from the Ford Mustang in America. And then the whole thing is nailed together in the West Midlands. Inside, it's pretty much as you'd expect, hopeless. I've got no satellite navigation, no electric seats, no airbag, and while there is a third gear, I don't really have the strength to engage it. Furthermore, this window doesn't go all the way down. As you can see, the anti-lock brakes are broken. There's nowhere to put my left leg. The dashboard looks like I made it, and half the time the dials come over all Longbridge-ish and go on strike. Now, you might think that this is somehow in keeping with the MG thing. Bit of baler twine here, a beard there, an allotment shed, and you're away. Yes, but this car has been designed to compete with Porsches and Lamborghinis. The base model, the cheapest, is going to be £75,000. Now, at this point, the Germans are probably rolling around on the floor laughing. So, the Tommies have made ein car out of spit and Kleenex. They will be crushed. But then, of course, the last time they underestimated us, they came up against the Spitfire. Listen to that Merlin soundtrack. This car has one of the world's great engines, a big, gurgling V8 with huge torque and an even huger thirst. Flat out, at 165 miles an hour, this car is using a kilo of fuel every minute. That's jet fighter consumption, but then it goes like a jet fighter. It's got that lightweight carbon fibre body, so it weighs nothing, and you can have as much power as you want. No, really, the standard car, the base model, produces 320 brake horsepower. This one, with a few tweaks, offers up 400. But they will sell you a nitrous kit that takes it up to 1,000 brake horsepower. 1,000! And you needn't worry about the chassis not being able to take that kind of grunt either, because it's poised, it's balanced, but most of all, it is just so much fun! Oh yes! Whoa! Oh, this is just terrific! God, just imagine how good it would be if you could get third. Now, I'd love to say at this point that when you've finished clowning around, it turns into a comfortable cruiser. But it doesn't. It's always a hard-riding, hard-charging, hard-drinking bruiser. And when I say bruiser, I have now finished recording everything I need to say in this car, but, well, no harm in a couple more. Whoa! Ow!
Did you bang your head a bit there, Jeremy? That was lovely. In fact, should we watch it again? Let's have another little look at this lovely moment here.
Whoa,
here we go. I'm really enjoying that. Can we see it again? That's maybe a better angle, just to make sure. Let's have another look as the Clarkson skull. That's right. I could watch that all day. Who'd like to see it in slow motion while we're at it? Might as well. Let's see it in slow. Oh, the Clarkson skull moves. That's the best bit of TV all year. You do that. You'll straighten them out a treat, Jeremy. I want that on my computer when I switch it on in the morning.
I'm back.
Yes, just.
Oh.
So I bet you wish you'd driven the city thing over there now.
City Rover?
That's the fella.
No. No, because this was fabulous. I mean, I know it did the unprovoked assault on the side of my head.
And I thank it for that.
But the noise and the looks and the speed and the handling, absolutely adored it. The only problem is, it's like, I don't know how much they spend developing it, 5 million quid maybe, whatever. If they'd have just spent another 50p on the interior.
It's a case of a heap of the tar.
It is a heap of the tar, almost wrecking it by that sort of, oh, well, you know, that'll do, that'll be all right, it's better than my ass.
Every penny spent on that bit of carbon fibre right there by your head was money well spent. But it does sound a lot like a TVR in feeling, you know, noisy and different.
Yes, except a TVR has got a better interior than this, and actually I think a TVR will be more reliable.
Just how bad was that knock on the head? You are still concussed. At £75,000 for this as well. I mean, TVR is going to be cheaper. 75 grand.
I know, you'd have to knock your head.
Yes.
No, it still doesn't make...
Do it again, keep going. And then...
yes, there we go. Oh, I want both of them now. You really would have to knock yourself senseless to pay for that. Unless, of course, it turns out to be really quick round the track. If it can go around quicker than a Porsche GT3 or a BMW CSL, then it would be worth that kind of outlay. So literally, its future is hanging by a thread on how it does on our track.
It's hanging in the balance, and we will find out how it does later on in the programme. But first, the burnout. Now, this is a burnout. It's not difficult, really. Rev the engine, keep your foot on the brake, make as much smoke as you can. All your mates cheer and jeer. Look at that, they're really pleased. And look at all that smoke. Marvellous. See, it's really not that difficult. And to put it into perspective, we've got one of our charts here. This actually shows the ascent of man. So we started down here as apes, and then over millions of years we evolved through the Willman era, through the Subaru Impreza driver era, until we get here, upright walking, modern man as we know him today, capable of thought and general brilliant stuff. So who wants to imagine where we might put the burnout driver on this chart? Where do we think he might appear? I mean, you know, kind of up here, or maybe down here, or down here. Well, I can tell you, actually, it's here. There he is, you see? There he is. In what we like to call the Nova SR Ice age. So we know people at that end can do it. What about people up towards this end? Can clever people do burnouts?
And I mean really clever, like boffin clever. The first contestant in our Brainbox Burnout is Heinz Wolf, Professor of Bioengineering at Brunel University. Competing against him is Brian Sewell, Britain's brainiest art critic. And finally, Professor Colin Pillinger, the country's leading expert on planetary and space science research. And this is the car the eggheads will be burning out. A Nissan 300ZX with 480 brake horsepower, a competition clutch and twin 10-inch subwoofers. So there we are, Britain's brightest brains focused on mankind's most mindless activity.
I think what I like about it is that it's part of a mechanical ballet.
It has brakes.
Yes.
That's why no woman should ever drive a car. They simply don't understand how these things mesh together.
It's accelerator, clutch, brake.
No, accelerator, brake, clutch. You see, we didn't foresee this. They're still asking questions. This could take hours.
First up, Brian Sewell, who wrote of Botticelli's portrait of Smeralda Bandinelli. The background architecture is an unconvincing fiction, the perspective absurdly steep in its unnerving rush into an unreal distance. Not bad. And now it's time for the massive IQ of Professor Wolf.
No, I think I'm having distinct touch trouble in this.
And big rev. No.
No. I missed the brake with my foot.
You missed.
Oh dear. He may know lots about the composition of polyisoprenes, but he can't mash his tyres. And finally, Professor Colin Pillinger, a real rocket scientist.
Very impressive. You may have noticed one missing. That's because Professor Heinz Wolf was so gutted at not doing desperately well, he had to rush off home and invent something to console himself.
We have still got two, though,
yes,
and
absolutely.
I would just like to say what a great pleasure it is for me to have people on my intellectual plane for a change.
Oh, no, I know where this is going, and I know what you're about to say, because I'm a doctor.
I am a doctor.
No, you're not.
I am a doctor.
Can I just explain? Jeremy got his doctorate one morning in his packet of cornflakes. He just
I
tipped
did
it up.
not. I got it from Brunel University. They gave me a doctorate.
He went to a party, they gave him a badge that said, I am a doctor on it.
Okay.
Ever since we've had to call him the doctor.
Can I just say, I think we're agreed on this. As man becomes more civilised, as time passes, he gets taller, doesn't he?
Oh,
The taller the man.
This is puerile.
Big brains, puerile stuff. Obviously, Professor Heinz Wolf, it must be said, came very much third. And nevertheless, in second place, Brian Sewell. It was a magnificent effort. Very well done.
Well done.
If it's any consolation, yours looked better. It had perhaps more artistic flair to it. I think I did well making up there.
Nevertheless, the winner, I think we're all agreed on this, with a magnificent performance. Colin Pillinger, everybody! Your award, and well done. Well done. Now, there's just one more thing I'd like to say before we go. Colin here, you really are a rocket scientist, aren't you? Because your Beagle 2, Mars lander, will be landing on the Red Planet on...
Christmas Day, 2:54 a.m. in the morning.
2:54. So it's not a question of shall we watch the Queen's speech or shall we watch pictures from my car on Mars?
AM.
AM.
Queen is on PM, remember?
I mean, fingers crossed that goes well. But I would just like to say, you're going to beat the Americans, aren't you?
We'll be there first.
Ladies and gentlemen, for that, a big well done.
While we were planning this programme about German cars, a bit of a row broke out in the office. What's the best British car?
Has anyone got any thoughts? What do we think is the best contemporary British car? Hold on a sec. What? The what?
TVR.
TVR is a good car, no denying that. Has anyone else got a thought? Ariel Atom. That's not really a car, that's sort of a bedspread with a motorcycle engine in the back of it.
XKR.
XKR, now that's a Jaguar.
Yeah.
And Jaguar's owned by Ford, which is an American company. And it's the same story with Rolls-Royce and Bentley, they're German. And it's the same Aston Martin, American.
Absolutely.
Anyone else got any thoughts? Nissan, what?
Nissan Micra.
Now, you see... The Nissan Micra comes in boxes from Japan and they put one screw in it in a place called the Northeast and then call it British. It isn't.
It's not as easy as you might think, so obviously we had to get out on the track if ever we were going to sort this one out.
So, the best British car. Well, it's going to have to be beautiful, built by blokes in a shed, and preferably powered by a big engine. It's going to have to be this, the Morgan Plus 8.
Now, straight away, if you're thinking, it looks old, forget it. This is how a Morgan looks and always has. Why change it? This car isn't assembled, it's crafted. There's as much passion goes into building it as you can put into driving it.
Do they still make those out of wood?
Yep, engines out of an old boat.
You've got to get past thinking, it's old-fashioned. It's made from wood, because wood is the best thing to make it from. Suspension is there to do one thing and one thing only, keep the wheels on the ground. And that bit of flex in the chassis helps you do exactly that. Oh, and then it gets bumpy sometimes and it just, come on. And of course, that engine, 4 litre, well proven, Rover V8. Best of all, not only is it as beautiful as the Malvern Hills in which it's built, it's fast. Oh look, Jeremy's brought a plastic car.
This is the Noble M12 GTO, the new one with the twin-turbo 3-litre engine. And I've got a bit of an idea. Richard, do you fancy a race?
Yeah, I'm always up for that.
Good. Little loop round here, and I reckon I can get back here, get out of the car and read a book before you finish.
That's just a ridiculous thing to say.
Oh, what's that speck in my rearview mirror? Why, it's the Morgan. caterpillar more than a big fat caterpillar. Built a small house called a cocoon around himself, stayed inside for more than 2 weeks, and he nibbled a hole in the cocoon, pushed his way out, and he was a beautiful butterfly with time to spare. But then I have got 352 brake horsepower, he's only got 190. I go from 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, that's faster than any Lamborghini. He takes 6.5. I have a top speed of 170. What's your top speed?
135.
135.
That is not a book.
Look, I could have read Pride and Prejudice, but this is better. This is A Very Hungry Caterpillar. You should read it. It comes with a toy, just make sure it doesn't eat your chassis.
This car is plastic. It has a stupid rear spoiler and it's made by a company no one's ever heard of on an industrial estate in Leicestershire. So for posing it's hopeless. But for the undiluted thrill of driving, it's almost impossible to do better.
Yes, yes, yes! God, I love this thing. I drive lots of cars, but you know, very little puts such a big smile on my face as this. You know when you see someone water skiing, how they arc through the water with total grip and total control? Well, that is what it's like driving a Noble. Except, of course, in this, you have the incredible soundtrack of that engine, those two turbos sucking in great lungfuls of air and then dumping it through the wastegate. Whoa. You can get into this after your dog had died and all would be well. Yes, whoops-a-daisy. This car just shows how good Britain could be if we just stop pretending that it's 1936. Just go, right, it's 2003, we don't use typewriters anymore, and boy, can we make something good. And yet, despite this precision and this handling genius, it's comfortable. I've got air conditioning, I've got a stereo. I've got lots of space, it's nicely trimmed, there are leather seats. I mean, what more could you want?
He misses the point. He's reduced the whole thing to a mathematical equation. That's not a car, it's a calculator.
They've brought the wrong cars. Actually, you know what? I think they've brought the wrong type of car. I'm not denying that Britain makes good sports cars, but the best British car is actually a comfortable saloon. Let me explain. This Rover 75 might look as if it came out of the 1950s, but in many ways it's the right car for modern Britain. Now, I'm a big fan of modern Britain, but let's think about what it means to the motorists. It's sleeping policemen, gatzos, congestion, broken up road surfaces, all that sort of stuff. Stress. Now, when you're faced with that, what do you want? 0 to 60 in 5, 4, 3 seconds? Louvres on your bonnet? I don't think so. You want peace. That's what the Rover gives you, peace. There's nothing raucous about its V6 engine. It rides more smoothly than a Rolls-Royce Corniche, and it's trimmed like a first-class cabin on the Titanic before it sank. Now, when Jeremy drives a car, he drives a car like this. In fact, even when he's just talking about a car, he does this. And Hammond talks about barrelling along in his Morgan. I don't want a barrel, I want a waft. Clearly, we weren't going to agree without an informed and reasoned discussion. Okay, the Rover is a proper symbol of British defiance. Awful
The
places.
reason why Britain has no car industry anymore, why all the names are gone, is because we live in the past. We used to be a great country.
Now, look.
Noble has come along and said, we are now in the 21st century, let's build a car to beat the world.
No, I could build your car. I couldn't build a Morgan.
You carved that?
You
a
need
chisel?
It's craftsman built, not some spotty teenager with a rivet gun.
Now, the problem with the Morgan is it's just a car that they forgot to stop making in the 40s.
No, that's entirely wrong.
Okay, the problem with the Noble is
There
the
isn't
engine's in the wrong place.
You will admit this is a beautiful car.
No,
It's all right.
I wouldn't admit that.
It's a toy, it's not a car.
Exactly.
We still couldn't agree, so we thought we'd try each other's cars.
Pathetic horn. I mean, listen to that. Get out of the way.
Yeah, you tuck your pension book in that little strap thing there.
Now that is terrifyingly quick, but I quite fancy, I don't know, a nice relaxing ride in a Rover.
Oh my God! Oh! Bloody nearly fell out of it. Swear, Hammond. Sometimes. I don't understand that, boy.
What?
I'll tell you what, do you live in a house or a barn?
A house.
Do you sleep on a bed?
Oh,
or a bed of straw?
A bed, obviously.
Come on, this is a bathroom appliance.
It's plastic. It's just...
Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll tell you what we'll do. No more arguing. We'll put it to the vote, okay?
So we're a democracy all of a sudden.
Yeah, we're a democracy now.
That's a first.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have a show of hands, please, for the Rover 75?
That's 3, James.
3, yeah, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, show of hands, please, for the mighty Morgan. Oh, that's not bad.
That's all the elderly gentlemen have got that. And can we just round this one off now, please? For the Noble. Yes, there you go. A complete wipeout. The best British car. Or is it? Earlier on, I tried the MG SV, and we reckoned that it would be worth £75,000 if it could go out on our track and give the Germans a bloody nose. So, let's fire him up. Colonel Fotherington Digby Stigby. So, with the very greatness of Britain resting on his shoulders, the Stig is away. Now, the track is dry today, so the MG has the best possible chance to give Fritzy a good drubbing. That is German music! The treacherous Stig's listening to Beethoven! Although he probably knows it simply as the tune from the IBM ad. It looked ragged out of Chicago there. What about Hammerhead? Ooh, understeer on the way in there. And then, what have we got? A little bit of oversteer. This isn't all that brilliant, must be honest. Coming down to the follow-through. Scary corner, this. Very scary. And look at the dive under braking. You almost hear the stifled laughter echoing around Stuttgart. OK, second to last corner. Can the Stick make it 1945 again, or even just 1966 would do? Cross the line. Now, this is what it's really got to be.
Yep.
M3 CSL, 1 minute 28.
Very
dead.
quick.
911 GT3, 127.2, and they were done on wet tracks.
Yeah.
It did it.
Go on.
1 minute 28.6.
Oh.
The Spitfire has lost to the Messerschmitts. So how about this for an idea? We put some nitrous on it and have a rematch. Yes? That's a good idea. We'll do that one day. For now, good night.